Okay. So today I want to talk about the topic of starting. How if you struggle with procrastination, productivity, just making progress on your goal, starting can be like immensely hard. Like you feel like there's like this massive mountain that you need to climb just to start. Um, or it feels like you need to move to push a mountain out of the way to get started. Like that is the amount of mental resistance, at least I feel, when I need to start something. And the more important the thing is, the higher the resistance. Um, it's it's incredibly frustrating. If you don't suffer that, you're very lucky, and I hope you never feel that. But that is kind of the topic I want to talk about. In case this is the first time, like I do this like in both video and audio. So in case this is your first time watching this or listening to this, I'm starting this kind of as a new project. It's a very meant to be like a very rough, almost stream of consciousness type of podcast of sorts, where it's just me talking about the struggles of getting things done, really, for somebody who's very easily distracted and tends to procrastinate a lot on kind of the most important things in my life. And I just wanted to do something where I get to talk about that almost like a public diary and in the format of a hangout, right? So that's why it's not scripted. I'm going to be thinking in real time. It's slow, and it's not edited, and there's a lot of ums and ahs. And yeah, it's meant to feel like you're, how you would talk when you're sitting with a friend, with a colleague, with somebody that, you're comfortable opening up to. And I'm hoping that this is just helpful to, somebody, at least somebody out there who maybe struggles with some of these things and might find this, I don't know, like comforting, kind of just knowing that you're not alone, and that, and maybe like something I say here could spark something for you. So I want to talk about this idea today. I've been thinking about how starting something is just so hard, and even when you do start, so there's almost like this curve where, at least with a lot of things, that starting is like really, really hard, but then once you start, it kind of gets easier and flattens out. Obviously, like on YouTube, I'm just like gesturing, but if you're like only listening to this in audio form, just imagine like a flat line, then a massive hump, which is like the effort required to start. And then it kind of like flattens out again and it becomes easier. This is where like, you hear about techniques like the 5-minute or 2-minute rule or whatever it is, where if you're procrastinating on something, if you just sit down and say like, I'm only going to do this for 2 minutes, and you sit down, and chances are you end up doing like a lot more than 2 minutes, right? And you just kind of get going, but you get away from like the fear of starting, or like most people don't even consciously think about it as fear, but you just get away from the procrastination, right? But so that's, I think, a kind of like that's a massive thing that happens. But what's been frustrating me more the past few days is like not even the step one of just get started. It's all the other steps that come after it, where it's not actually magically all better and easier now. I'll give an example. I've been living in Germany for 8 years, but haven't learned the language, and I really need to, and I want to, right? Like I want to, so I can feel more comfortable here. So I don't feel still like a complete stranger and like very alien to the culture, so that I can depend on myself more, be able to like be just self-sufficient and not need to have somebody like understand English, especially if I'm doing like paperwork or any like sort of mundane daily interactions with people. It's just very useful, obviously, to speak the language and of the country that you're living in. That goes without saying. But also because I'm not from Germany and I'm originally from Syria, and I want to have another passport because it makes just traveling so much easier. So I've been wanting to do that since I got here. It's one of the main reasons I moved to Germany, but I haven't really had a deadline for learning German and been essentially kind of, in summary, procrastinating on learning German for 8 years. I would start and stop. Obviously, it's not like never crossing my mind to actually get started with it, but I would constantly start and stop for various reasons. And because there's no deadline, and because starting is so hard, it would take a ton of effort to get started. Then something would distract me. Something would happen. I would travel for a while, or like, COVID like took out an entire year of my life. And then I got married, and then I was busy with work, and like all these different reasons that I'm very good at rationalizing why I haven't learned the language yet. So 8 years, but now for the first time in many, many years, I'm actually sticking to something. So that's the whole challenge of almost 0 to 1, where just the act of starting is really hard. But a few weeks ago, I found this course, and it's a free course. So it was kind of like this amazing opportunity. It's like, all right, this is it. I need to jump on this. I can't let this go, because it's a free German course, intensive, 2 hours, 5 days a week, right? So like every day of the week, Monday to Friday, I have 2 hours of learning German. It's not the most intensive. There are courses that are super intensive where it's like 4 or 5 hours a day. So this is not that, and that would not have been feasible for me to do like alongside work. But in my mind, I was so excited that I was going to start this that I wasn't even thinking about how hard walking this path is going to be. So today is Monday, and it's week 3 of the course. And I'm like, honestly, like very frustrated, and like with myself and like with just this whole situation, because like I was so happy that I actually committed to a course, and I'm doing it, every day of the week for 2 hours. But this is going to sound stupid, obviously, if you're listening, but I never really thought about all the time I would have to dedicate outside of the course to actually get good. Like you can't expect to just show up for the classes and get better at the language. You need to put at least, like, at a minimum, like for a 2-hour course, maybe 1 hour of study outside of that just to keep up. And if I really want to, move fast, I would probably need at least like 2 hours per day, or like if it's not per day, then like maybe kind of do more on the weekends or something like that. But I like happened to be busy with like different family reasons, both this past weekend and the one before, and busy kind of with just like work and life stuff during the week. And obviously, like, this is just kind of an excuse. Obviously, if somebody put a gun to my head and forced me to make time for studying more German, I would do it, obviously, right? But this is like the challenge. Like, with a lot of things related to procrastination, that the answer is like, you should just do this. And it sounds very simple and easy when you say like, oh, just do X or Y or Z. But it's not like that. And what I've been thinking about is just how taking this course, it's now like I haven't really done any work to change like my lifestyle around it, right? Like, how when somebody starts a diet, or like if they want to get healthy, it's not about having like a crash diet for a few months and then you kind of stop. Maybe that's useful if you like want to lose a lot of weight and then and that's kind of the main goal, but then you do a less extreme version of that diet for like long term to be like more sustainable, right? But what most advice tells you is that there's no such thing, like you can't just do a crash diet and expect to keep that weight off. You need to like really literally change your lifestyle. Like movement and sport need to become part of your life now. Healthy eating needs to become part of your life now. You need to change your relationship with food, all of these things, right? And so it's something similar with like learning German. Now, if I really want to learn this language, to kind of use that diet analogy, I could do quote unquote like the crash diet equivalent of like just cramming for like the language tests. And if I take those, then I would be able to get the citizenship. And then that's kind of one big part of why I want to do this, gets resolved. But like the other part of actually being proficient in the language and being able to like speak it in conversation and communicate in it like I can with English, even though, as you can tell with my like weird accent in places, English is not my first language and I kind of stumble on certain words. But yeah, I've been frustrated with myself because I feel like I'm squandering this opportunity. It's been 2 weeks already and I've done very, very little, like almost like negligible amount of studying outside of the course. And now I'm just struggling to make time for it. So like one thing that I'm going to try to commit to this week is 1 hour before the course. So it's like an evening course and I want to try to like at least like, because that's literally the latest I can push it before like I need to use the stuff that I studied, right? So like literally before the course, kind of leaving everything to the last minute. But honestly, in most cases, that's what works with me, with the least amount of effort of like, I'll only do the thing at the last possible time or like, at the 11th hour, as they say. But that's how it works. That's what gets me to do something. I need to really feel the pressure and the deadline. Obviously, that's bad and risky because if anything happens where like I need to deal with something urgently and means that in that hour I can't do it. Like today, I actually wanted to do that today, but I had to like run a quick errand before. And so I actually didn't, right? Like because I was leaving it to like the very last minute. Obviously, it would be better to study right after like a class, but I'm also too tired. And right now, at the end of a course, I'm kind of like straining to really keep up and understand. And by the end of it, I feel like I just want to like unwind for a bit because it's like I do it after work, immediately after work, right? So it's like a normal work day, then a German course. And then I feel like, all right, now it's just like, I just want to unwind for a bit because then it's going to be bedtime and got to do it all over again, right? Obviously, past 2 weekends were like quote unquote exceptions because it was essentially like spending the entire time with family. That's not what I do every weekend. And it was like, some family was visiting Germany and it was just spending a lot of time with them. Whereas that's not the kind of normal, like that's not what every weekend looks like. But it's still kind of in a way an excuse. It would have been harder, obviously, to carve out the time with family around, but I wasn't, I don't know what the word is, wasn't disciplined enough to do that and kind of make that sacrifice. Obviously, they would have understood if I told them that I wanted to do this, but it was like a weird mix of like feeling guilt and then like hoping like, oh, okay, maybe like, and obviously like when you have something that breaks your routine, it usually, like, a lot of stuff also goes out the window, like my sleep schedule. We'd stay up late, kind of wake up late. And so when we wake up, we would have plans and want to do something. And then I say to myself, like, all right, maybe I'll do it in the evening. And like, but when we come back in the evening, I'm too tired, and we just kind of hang out for a bit, and then I go to bed. And so again, all of that to say, I could have done it. I just didn't, because it's hard, right? And that's what I think, that's something that a lot of people don't get, that don't struggle with this stuff. And this is where, I mean, regardless of whether or not the people around you like are judgmental or they judge you for it, whether you can sense the them being judgmental or not, is besides the point. But it makes it frustrating. There's like a feeling of shame when, I mean, I know that I, have felt that, like very unpleasant feeling of shame when I would meet with somebody, especially, for example, ex-colleagues and people I used to work with, and we'd like go out for like a coffee, or I would talk to them, or like, previous classmates from university, something like that, friends. And I say like, all right, I haven't spoken to this person in 2 years, 3 years, and I still haven't made any progress since last time I spoke to them, for example, when it comes to this topic of learning German. And it feels like, I don't know, it's one of the worst feelings as somebody who struggles with this. So it's kind of like a touchy subject. Obviously, like, somebody could look at this as like, oh, this is just a first world problem. Obviously, like, you have, you're living well, you're healthy, and all, and I get that, and I have immense gratitude for all the blessings that I have. And in fact, maybe I'm just like really good at feeling guilty, or like maybe I use like this feeling of guilt as another way to procrastinate. I don't know. But the fact that I have so many blessings also puts more pressure on me, in the sense that I get this feeling that I'm squandering all of the blessings that I've been given, and I'm not using them well. And that feeling intensifies when I see somebody with who has a much harder life, seemingly able to do a lot more with a lot less than I can, right? And so it's just like feeling bad and guilty all around, essentially, right? When you struggle with this topic, with this sort of thing. And yeah, again, like with this podcast, it's meant to, or whatever you want to call it, with what I'm trying to do here, with this little project, let's call it, I don't pretend to have the answers. This isn't the sort of, podcast, video, whatever it is, where I just tell you what the answer is. Again, it's more of a stream of consciousness, wanting to vent to like a friend, or like it's more like a much more informal version of like a blog or journal or diary or whatever it is. And it's just me talking about what I'm struggling with, and maybe ideas for how to improve things. And the hope, at least, is that this project itself becomes some sort of catalyst for making changes, because I've always believed in the idea of just reflection being like very useful. Like, if you're not reflecting on what you're doing, like how you're living your life, you're not gonna notice what's wrong, or like obviously you might notice it here and there, but then because your brain wants to protect you from feeling bad, it tries to like distract you with something, right? And I've spoken about this before in the first video / episode of this that I have put out. By the time you're seeing this, by the way, like, this is a slight tangent. This is the second episode of this mini project thing, and I still haven't put out the first episode, and I recorded that 3 weeks ago, and my goal was to actually release it within like maybe a day or two, but I procrastinated on that as well. Even though this is a project that I want to do, there's this other mental trap of when something becomes like a task, like a to-do, there's this frustrating resistance that comes up. Like today, I procrastinated on recording this episode, and I was literally doing the dumbest things that maybe some of you will be familiar with. I was like, I started to tidy up the the place. I was like, oh, like this is like this. I need to. This is like, why is this room so messy? Let me like clean it up. And it wasn't even like related to the background, right? Like to whereas an excuse for actually like related to doing this. And then literally before I hit record and I was looking at the screen and I could see like, it's like, oh, maybe maybe I need to wipe my glasses, right? Because they're kind of like dirty. And it's like literally noticing these silly little things of just procrastinating with, every possible thing. Obviously, like, I don't know, if I were to like try to analyze myself, it would be because I'm worried this is going to be bad, or that people are going to hate this. I mean, probably very few people are ever going to watch this because it's going to be like a new podcast / new YouTube channel. So it just like views won't materialize out of nowhere. And I don't know how long I'm going to do this for, but when you're putting something out there, and in this case, kind of putting myself out there, it's not even like I'm putting out like a product. The product is just like me, like trying to open up. Then yeah, I'm going to worry that it's bad. Like people are going to think like, this is so like long-winded, like get to the point, and this is dumb, this is useless, what's wrong with you? Why don't you just do that? All these things, right? It's not that I think about these things consciously, but I do think that they are there in the background. When I think consciously about this project, it excites me. I want to do it. But that's why like a lot of things in life that seem simple are actually not so simple. And there's a lot of complexity, hidden complexity that gets into things. And that's why don't you just do X is not useful advice, and it's frustrating. And sometimes you just want to shake the person in front of you, because if they don't have that problem, you simply cannot make them understand why it's so hard, even when there is nothing physically stopping you. Even when you say like, if somebody put a gun to my head, then I would do it. But actually the fact that there is no gun pointed to your head is what makes it hard, right? At least that's how it is for me. The only reason, and this is maybe like where there is like a nugget of something useful from this episode, if you do actually like struggle with these things, the only reason I was able to record this today is because I was talking about this exact topic and the fact that I wanted to do this project, this podcast / YouTube channel, to a friend. And I promised my friend, and like, so we said, so one of the things I'm trying to do is, do better at keeping in touch with different people in my life, especially ones that no longer live or like don't live in Berlin. Some people, they never lived in Berlin. Some of them were living in Berlin and kind of moved out, or moved, right? You move out of an apartment, I think, not out of a city. And I promised my friend that before. So one of the things is like I'm trying to like keep in touch with people and like setting almost like a cadence of talking every few weeks, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, with different people that I would like to stay in touch with. And so for like that one particular friend, I was talking about this topic, and they were like, okay, you need a commitment device. And so I'm going that basically they were saying they were going to be that commitment device. And they said like, okay, before next time we talk, you should just commit to recording, this podcast that you're talking about, so you don't just keep procrastinating on it. And because I think there was a month maybe between the that time we were talking and the time when we were going to set the next call, I said, okay, so that's about like maybe 4 weeks. I'm going to commit to recording 3 episodes, right? Because I wanted to like get to this cadence of maybe 1 episode per week, or 1 video per week. And this is only the second one, which means one of 2 things. And I'm speaking to my friend tomorrow. So either I'm going to have to record another episode right after this, and I do have another topic I want to talk about, or I'm going to do it tomorrow. But that's literally like what's getting me to do this, because I promised my friend that I would do it, and I don't want to, like, me imagining myself showing up to the call and saying that I didn't do it is actually overpowers, like the negativity of that overpowers my resistance to like doing something that has become like a task, which my brain automatically starts to procrastinate on. But yeah, I know I've kind of like went off the rails a little bit with tangents here. So again, like the topic, if it even is, like there even is a topic or a theme to this video or today's episode, is that although going from 0 to 1 is hard, which is, you know, as in like the step 1 of starting something is hard, what comes after can also be really hard. Sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes I have experienced that thing of the 2-minute rule where it's like, oh, okay, like now that I started this, it's actually not so bad. For example, I would imagine that once I somehow figure out how to dedicate more time to studying German and like maybe study it for 1 hour a day, I imagine if I just start for 2 minutes, I don't think I'm going to struggle. Like the other 58 minutes are not just going to be me hating myself. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I'll report back on that maybe in a future video, once I hopefully figure out or like get consistent about doing it. But in this case, it's more the realization that once you start something, it doesn't necessarily get easier from there. Like, because, you know, as a procrastinator, you get sometimes, or at least I do, so fixated on this like mountain that I need to push out of the way in order to get started, that I think might have like just forgot or like didn't even think about what comes after, and always imagining that shape of it's just going to be like this massive hump, then it's going to be smooth sailing almost from there, right? But that is not at all what I've experienced the past 2 weeks, where I showed up to every class and I'm showing up on time, and I'm being very disciplined about showing up to class and protecting that. And that alone is actually like another like learning of like in years of trying like different self-learning methods. And because I actually, another quick tangent, I actually really dislike the normal classroom structure because I feel it's so inefficient. You're having to wait your turn, like especially compared to like maybe one-on-one tutoring, but that's way more expensive. And so anyway, I feel I've always kind of convinced myself like, no, I don't want to like do a class. And in the past, there were even like other reasons, because my work schedule was always so variable from week to week. It was always hard to commit to like a normal schedule, even though I never actually asked my boss at work whether they would mind me doing a course maybe during work hours or like, so that was like another, honestly, in retrospect, stupid thing that probably cost me years of progress, of me just always assuming like, oh, no, I can't even take a class because my schedule is so variable, and not even attempting to work with my boss to say like, all right, I'm going to have like these classes here if I sign up for this course, and it means I might be inflexible with some work stuff and might have to like work around it. Are you willing to? I never really asked that question, right? Which is dumb. So if you're in a similar situation, please don't just assume stuff and ask the people around you. The worst that could happen is the answer is no, but at least then you tried. But you know, even if you think like, oh, but like the chances that my boss would say yes, is like 10%. It's honestly worth it because you don't want to be me. You don't want to wait 7-8 years on a goal before you make progress because you didn't ask, right? And it's worth asking multiple times, probably. Not, every day, but like every now and then, because things change, situations change. But anyway, I used to hate the class room structure because I felt it's so inefficient, and I tried so many other ways of doing it, of like, not, Duolingo is nice. I don't use it as like, I never thought that it would be the way to learn a language, but there were other like online programs, and I would feel like, oh, but these are so superior to just like old classroom and book. I always felt that was so outdated, that the format had never, especially like me working in a product design context, always thinking of innovation and better ways of doing things. And the old classroom model of learning a language always felt like so ancient. It was like, surely there must be a better way of learning a language than that in terms of like the actual mechanics. I know people talk about immersion as like the best way to learn a language. But I figured like there must be like, in terms of like smaller mechanics, better ways than read this book, do this exercise, without getting any real feedback on what you did wrong, without like interweaving like spaced repetition that helps with memorization and things like that. Or interactivity, or like short feedback loops. Anyway, all of these things. So I kind of convinced myself that a classroom environment is not the way to go, and that I also needed something more flexible and all of that. But in 8 years, this is the first time, like since the last course I did, which was pre-COVID, last time I was in a course, I even tried like doing one-on-one tutoring, but because the scheduling was so flexible, I would stop doing it eventually, and I would keep telling like my tutors like, oh no, this week's bad, and like that day I can't, and like I'm busy here and I'm busy there, right? And the only thing that got me to actually commit was signing up for this free course that required 80% attendance, or you then had to pay for the course, right? And so that worked amazingly as a commitment device. I know this whole idea of commitment devices is also like quite old. Like I think you could read about it in, like I heard about it in like a Freakonomics podcast, if you're familiar with that. It's a very old podcast. And like there's the power of habit and atomic habits, and like they all mention this concept, right? But that's a topic for another day. The whole like learning from books, and like I think even that can be like another deceptive form of procrastination. But this idea of commitment devices, I think, is not just like it's not so simple as well, right? Because I tried a commitment device. I tried to apply that idea by paying a lot of money to get credits on this platform that allowed me to get one-on-one lessons with a tutor. But apparently it wasn't the right commitment device, and it wasn't painful enough. Even though it was a lot of money, it was like $400 a month. I did a few months in a row, and I was letting like almost like 50%, 30 to 50% of my credits expire at the end of each month, because it was all like reliant on me every week to have the discipline to schedule in these courses or these classes, these one-on-one classes. And I would just end up saying like, no, it's impossible. I can put one here, put one there. But I can't on this day, and I can't on that day, and I have this project and I have this deadline. And so when it was all dependent on me to do it, I would like have a very bad track record in the end, where like 30 to 50%. So I was losing like essentially hundreds of euros per month on that. And that kind of almost made me write off this idea of commitment devices, like, commitment devices is like this idea that maybe works in some cases, but it doesn't work in all cases. And I kind of wrote off the entire idea of a commitment device almost because I figured like, what's a stronger commitment device than paying hundreds of euros per month, right? But it turns out that that's not the only way, that's not the only commitment device. And this what I'm trying right now with this course is working wonderfully in terms of getting me to commit to showing up and trying to learn in the classroom. But now, so we've moved from 0 to 1, but now the challenge is going from step 1 to step 2. Is like, okay, now comes the part which is probably even way harder. Like, now I need to change my lifestyle around this course. So learning German needs to become part of my life, literally part of what I do, almost like part of my identity, at least for a while, of like, I am somebody who likes to learn German, right? That's another idea. I think that might be like something for another podcast. I'll just like write a note here real quick. This idea of like, do you need to like something to do it? Or, somebody would argue like, are you kidding? Like, you're not a child. You should be able to do things that you don't like because they need to get done, right? And what kind of like lazy, spoiled upbringing, or like, this generation, like everybody, like, millennials and like the generations after are so, I don't know, spoiled and undisciplined that they need everything like to have like some sort of gamification and to be fun to be able to do it, right? I think that's another topic, but point is, it needs to become part of my daily life. And for the past 2 weeks, it has felt that this class that I'm attending is like jammed into my schedule. It's like this uncomfortable thing is like, oh, fine, I'll attend the 2 hours, but right up to the start of the class, I'm like kind of annoyed that I have to do it. And like almost, honestly, like just reflecting and looking back, probably proud of myself of like, all right, I'm actually committing to this. So, I committed to this. I don't have to like it, but I'm doing it. And so it feels like I'm, putting in the effort at least, right? And like that alone is enough of an achievement that I'm just like allowed to not do anything around it. Again, these are not conscious thoughts, but looking back, I think something like that is probably going on in the background. And so I'm kind of like not doing anything leading up to it. And after I'm done with this, like, okay, now it's me time. Now it's unwinding time. Honestly, sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's like, now it's like time to like go do the dishes and the laundry and like this and that. And then finally, like maybe just unwind for like an hour before bed. And so, yeah, there is no like real outro for this. I think I am gonna call it a day here, or call it for this episode. Let's see if I have the energy to do the next one before I talk to my friend tomorrow and be able to say that I did record my 3 episodes. But if I try to, I think at one point, I don't even know if I finished the thought, talked about this idea that at least reflection, I think I believe in the importance of that. I tried and I started journaling so many times in my life, and every time I do it, I'm so happy when I'm doing it, and I would get consistent with it for a while, then I would again drop off. But when I'm doing it, I always had this sense of clarity, and I would feel like I was a better person. I would feel like I was learning from my mistakes, as opposed to getting that, falling into the mental trap of, when I don't reflect very almost tangibly, as in like the physical act of having to write your thoughts down makes you think about things more clearly, especially that you have to translate fuzzy thoughts and feelings into words. And so it's the same with this project but it's now like more in audio form, and I'm reflecting by talking and speaking, as opposed to writing things down. But I do believe in the power of that, and I am excited about doing this consistently. So I really do hope that this is useful. And I really do hope, again, this is like a, not even tiny is not the right word. It's almost a non-existent podcaster / channel. So I'd actually love to have a conversation in the comments. Obviously, like, this would be on YouTube, and I think I might put this on Substack, so you can also, if you're subscribed to this via like a newsletter, you can also like comment on Substack if you have thoughts, if you want to share about your own experiences. But yeah, what I wanted to talk about today, again, to try to summarize, was just that, yes, going from 0 to 1 is hard, but also going from 1 to 2 and then 4, 5, 6 is also hard, right? And kind of needs, it's a new challenge now, and like I don't think the challenges you ever run out of the challenges, but it's more thinking out loud with you and hanging out to talk about what could work, what maybe I try and doesn't work. And so I think let's do this. This is something that I thought about when I was thinking of the idea for this project / podcast, is that I want this to be kind of like a commitment device to people listening if you struggle with this sort of thing. Obviously, it won't be as effective as having like, quote unquote, a real commitment device, a real deadline, because I'm not going to know whether you did the thing that you're committing to. For example, let's say you say like, all right, between now and next week, when the next episode of this comes out, if I ever manage to actually get to that consistency and you can rely on having weekly episodes of this, let's say you commit to doing something and working on a goal that you have. If you don't actually do it, you're not going to have this thing of me looking you in the eye and you having to tell me that you didn't do the thing. You're not going to have that, right? So, but I mean, if at the very least this serves more as a reminder for you to reflect, then I think that's a good start, right? And maybe hearing somebody else reflect helps. Maybe you find out like, oh yeah, I also have that problem, but maybe I never really thought about it or reflected on it. And if you do that, then that's great. And maybe you even think of how you might work around that problem. So yeah, that's my goal with this, articulated very badly. Yeah, and I'm hoping that in each episode, even though they're all going to be messy, none of them are going to be like super coherent, like a more structured, thought through obviously I could prepare more for these, but can you imagine how much more I would procrastinate if I had to sit down and prepare? If there had to be pre-work before I hit the start recording button, nothing would ever come out. So that's why it's so rough, and that's why it's not edited. And I was actually inspired by like this whole format from my boss at work, and he has kind of like a similar podcast with a similar style. His is way more entertaining, way more enjoyable. He's a very entertaining and funny person. So this has like not a similar vibe in that sense, and probably not as useful or entertaining, but I don't care about that right now. All I care about is being able to do this consistently, and maybe it helps one person out there, right? And I'll be happy that it, if it does. So yeah, I don't know how to end this. I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to say on this topic that I haven't messily somehow maybe touched on even briefly, but yeah, if you ever started something and then felt that, only like realized that it's now even harder, that's going from step 1 to 2 is even harder than going from 0 to 1, then yeah, just know that you're not alone in feeling that other people who struggle with procrastination and working on goals are also feeling that. And things that could help are probably reflecting, finding, exploring commitment devices. I know that's like such a maybe clunky term for it. But yeah, exploring things that could get you to commit. It seems that I find that the common denominator with a lot of commitment devices is just people. Like there's another person on the other end that you're committing to. Like as in with this class format, I feel like, I don't know, the teacher will know that I'm not showing up. There's also this aspect that it's free, but if I don't attend, if I like miss 20% of classes, then I would have to pay. And I don't really know why that's different than me. Or maybe I do actually. I think maybe like I'll just one last quick tangent. I think maybe in the past, because I used to, you would pay up front for the credits. And so I've already parted with that money and almost like made peace with the fact that my bank account now doesn't have this amount, that I'm more okay. Whereas in this case is like, all right, I don't have a lot of money, and if I miss classes, I'm going to have to pay and have even less money. Maybe that's it, but I don't know. Just to go back to the topic, exploring commitment devices, reflecting, maybe using this podcast just as a reminder to reflect and think about what goals are you maybe ashamed of not making progress on, that your mind automatically tries to distract you of like, let's not think too much about this and let's just watch some more YouTube videos or whatever thing you use to distract yourself. For me, like it tends to be YouTube. And yeah, let's maybe chat in the comments. And I would love to know what's working for you, and would love to know if this is helpful. And I'll see you next time.